Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome back. The other day I had a Christian gentleman come up to me and tell me that the Qur'an itself commands us to worship God and Jesus. I said, what? And he said, the Qur'an itself tells you to worship God and Jesus. And he had a smirk on his face. And I thought, well, this is going to be interesting. So show me where in the Qur'an it says that. So he showed me chapter 9, verse 31. Chapter 9 is Surah Tawbah. And in verse 31, it's basically criticizing the Jews and Christians for engaging in false worship. And the verse says, they, meaning the Jews and or the Christians, they took their priests and their monks as lords rather than God and the Christ. I'll repeat that. They took their priests and their monks as lords besides God, or rather than God and the Christ. So upon that English reading, upon that English translation of the Quran, it definitely sounds as if the Quran is saying that the Jews and the Christians are supposed to be worshiping God and Jesus. But instead of worshiping God and Jesus, they took their priests and their monks as gods, or they gave them too much authority, more than they should have. So I asked this Christian gentleman, can I see who's done this translation? And the translation was done by a Coptic Egyptian American Christian named Usama Dakdok. Now in this English translation of his, he hasn't included the original Arabic Quran. But this is clearly a purposeful mistranslation of the Quran. When you look at Usama Dakdok's translation of the Quran, which he's named the Generous Qur'an, on the back of the book, as you can see here, he says that Arabic is his first language. Now, Arabic is not my first language. Arabic is not the first language of most Muslims. But even the basic grasp that I have of Quranic Arabic tells me that his translation is way off. Now, before I even get into the Arabic grammar of my argument, let me just say that even common sense will take us where we need to get to. How is it possible, just using common sense, how is it possible that the Quran, a book which criticizes Christians for worshiping Jesus, how can that same book be then telling you elsewhere that the Christians are supposed to be worshiping God and Jesus? The same book says that, don't the Christians think and ponder and reflect? Don't they see that Jesus and Mary were human beings, that they had to eat? Don't they see that they had to eat, that they needed sustenance, that if God didn't sustain them, they wouldn't exist? The same book says that Jesus is no more than a messenger. He's a messenger of God. He's not God himself. He's not God incarnate. He's not God in the flesh or part of a triune God. He is no more than a messenger of God, a prophet of God. Elsewhere in the Quran, God rhetorically asks the question of Jesus, did you tell your followers to worship you and your mother as two gods besides God? And Jesus answers and says, no, how could I tell the people, how could I teach the people something which I have no authority to teach them? I only told them to worship God, my Lord and your Lord, my God and your God. So using common sense, how is it possible that this very same book would then tell you elsewhere that you're supposed to be worshiping God and Jesus? So just common sense on the part of our Christian friends should be enough to dismiss such a mistranslation, to be able to identify such a mistranslation as being just that, a mistranslation, something that was done wrong. But now let me briefly go into the grammar aspect of my argument, and trust me, I'm going to make it simple so that anyone can understand it, even if you don't know a word of Arabic. Just be patient and watch this video till the very end, because I want to show you exactly, I want to show you precisely how evangelical Christians in America, like Usama Dakdok, like a lot of these Coptic Christians, are actually twisting the translation of the Quran. They're twisting the language, the very same thing that they're accusing Muslims of doing. They're saying that Muslims are mistranslating the Quran in a way to make it more palatable to an American audience, but they are actually the ones that are making fools out of you. So let me show you precisely and exactly how Usama Dakdok did that in chapter 9 verse 31 of his translation of the Quran called the Generous Qur'an. It says, اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله والمسيح ابن مريم. So اتخذوا means they took, ahbar, priests, ahbarahum, their priests, waruhban, and monks, waruhbanahum, and their monks, Arbaban means as lords. Min duna, which means besides or rather than Allah, God. Wa, and Al-Masih ibn Maryam, the Messiah, the son of Mary, and it continues on. So they took their priests and monks as lords besides God and the Messiah. Now here's the thing, look at the word priests. It has this vowel mark on top of it, which is called a fatha, which is basically a mark on top of the object of the verb took. So ahbara, that vowel mark on the top means that priests is the object of they took. They took what? They took their priests, and you see that above the monks. Waruhban also has that vowel mark above, which means they took their priests and their monks as lords, min dunillahi, rather than Allah, rather than God. And when it comes to the word God, you can see that the vowel marking is below the word. That's called a kasra. There's a reason for that. So it's not the same as the two previous words, priests and monks, but it is in the genitive case, and that mark is called a kasra. Then when it comes to wal masiha and the Messiah, you can see that that vowel mark is at the top again, indicating that the Messiah is the object of the verb took. So they took their priests and they took their monks and they took the Messiah as lords besides God. Now let me make that even clearer to you in just the English. They took, we know is a verb. They took what? They took their priests. So we have this vowel mark, which indicates that it is the direct object of the verb took. They took their priests and monks. So monks also has this same vowel mark, which is called a fatha, again indicating that monks is also a direct object of the verb took. They took their priests and monks as lords besides Allah. Now Allah doesn't have that fatha mark on top. It has a kasra mark below, which indicates that it is in the genitive case due to the preposition besides. And the Messiah again has that fatha vowel mark on top of it, which indicates that it too is the direct object of the verb took. So they took what? They took their priests and they took their monks and they took the Messiah and they took Jesus as lords besides Allah. They weren't supposed to do that. They weren't supposed to worship the priests or the monks or the rabbis or the Messiah. I think even if you're an American Christian and you don't know a single word of Arabic, you can just rewatch the video that I just made. Just rewatch that part and you can see that due to the vowel markings in the original Arabic, it's absolutely clear that the Qur'an is saying that the Jews and Christians, the Christians specifically rather, they made a mistake by taking their rabbis and their priests and Jesus as lords or as authorities above and beyond the authority and sovereignty and supremacy of God Almighty. Now there's only two possibilities for why Usama Dakdok did this. Either he doesn't have proper knowledge of Arabic, because despite being a native Arabic speaker, if he is one, if he really is from Egypt, colloquial Egyptian Arabic today is quite different in a number of respects from the standard classical Arabic of the Qur'an. When you're reading an Egyptian newspaper today, you're not dealing with these vowel markings, and so you don't have to deal with all of this. So either Usama Dakdok is not proficient in Arabic as he says, or he is purposely twisting the Qur'an. He's purposely misusing his knowledge of Arabic in order to pull a veil over his American Christian friends and just giving them any kind of trick that they can use when they are evangelizing to Muslims. Usama Dakdok is not the only one to try to use the Quran, chapter 9 verse 31, to try to trick Muslims into believing that the Quran is telling them to worship the Messiah or to worship Jesus. Christian Prince does the exact same thing. Christian Prince, of course, is a Christian debater on YouTube and Pal Talk. And Christian Prince's fanboys have uploaded and re-uploaded videos of him using chapter 9 verse 31 of the Quran to try to make this point. So I'm going to ask Christian Prince's fanboys, if he is such an if he's such a master of Arabic, if he knows Arabic so well, that's his main selling point. He says, look, I am an Arab, I'm Christian, I know Arabic, you American Christians don't. That's why I'm going to give you all the right arguments to use against Islam. So the question is, if he knows Arabic, how could he make such a major blunder? And if you're still unconvinced, because I know that many of you American evangelical Christians, you've been raised on a steady diet for the past 15 years of Muslims are evil, Muslims are liars, Muslims are told to lie, they're deceitful. If you don't want to believe me, that's fine. How about asking one of your Arabic friends, what do these signs mean? Why is there a vowel mark above priests? Why is there a vowel mark above monks? And why is there that vowel mark, the fatha, above Christ? And why is it that Allah is different? Why is it that with Allah, the vowel mark is underneath the word Allah, which indicates that that word is in the genitive case due to the preposition min duna, or besides, rather than. So explain these vowel marks to me. This is a question you should ask of your Arabic Christian friends. Tell them, hey, you're Arabs, you understand Arabic, we don't, so please explain to us, what do these vowel marks mean? What was that Canadian brother on that YouTube channel, what was he talking about? Let me tell you American Christians something. More than you have to fear us, more than you should fear us Muslims, you should fear your friends, because it's your friends that can drag you to hell. And on the day of judgment, you're going to be pointing at people like Christian Prince and Usama Dakdok saying, this is what you told us the Qur'an said, that's why we believed it. And as the Qur'an indicates, they'll turn back to you and say, we didn't force you to follow us, we didn't force you to believe anything that we said, we didn't force you to believe anything that we wrote, we didn't tell you to unquestioningly follow us, we didn't tell you to not have any skepticism or question what we're telling you. So I'm telling you, while you have the chance, question what people like Christian Prince are telling you, and question what people like Usama Dakdok are telling you. Just because they are Arab Christians doesn't mean that they know Arabic better than Arabic Muslims, and in many cases they are purposely twisting the meanings of the Quran in order to pull a veil over your eyes, the very same accusation that they make against Muslims. And for me, the funny thing is that, as the Quran says, falsehood cannot approach it, not from in front of it, not from behind it. Falsehood cannot touch the Quran. The very same verse 931, which some of these Christian evangelicals are misquoting, that very same verse goes on to say, وَمَا أُمِرُوا إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُوا إِلَهًا وَاحِدًا لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا هُ سُبْحَانَهُ عَمَّا يُشْرِكُونَ. And they were not commanded except to worship one God. There is no God other than Him. Far exalted is He above anything that they falsely attribute to Him. So the very same verse, that very same verse continues on to say that there is only one God. They were only ordered to worship one God. They were only commanded to worship one God, not three. There aren't three persons up there. There's not a committee of three persons or a God composed of three persons up there. There's only one God. That's what the Quran clearly teaches. That is what the Old Testament clearly teaches. And that is what Jesus, peace be upon Him, clearly taught.